We're good.
Yeah, Rap Radar Podcast, Elliot Wilson.
My name is B-Dot.
B-Dot, what's up, baby?
I'm feeling like money right now.
This is the king of music publishing, man, Mr. Big Jon Platt. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man.
This is rare, man. We appreciate you, brother.
Very rare, but I'm happy to do it.
When people see all these like Billboard Power executive issues and stuff, your name comes up. Like, can you tell tell the people a little bit about like what you do for a living and why, if you know the music industry, your name just keeps coming up?
Sure. I'm a music publisher, and I've been doing music publishing for over 23 years now. I started at EMI Music Publishing in 1995, and I worked there for 17 years. And then when the company got sold, I left and went to Warner Chappell, which I am now the chairman and CEO of Warner Chappell. And so I work with songwriters. That's my life now, is servicing songwriters. That's what I'm.
Heard the first taste was a little record called TLC, Waterfalls.
I heard about
that
it
was
once.
a big record, man.
Yeah, a brother by the name of Marquez Etheridge wrote that song. A friend of mine named Erica Nuri, when I first started at EMI, I wanted to sign lyric writers. And a lot of people were signing producers at that time. Yeah. And so I asked Erica, did she know any lyric writers? Because she wrote lyrics as well. And she said, yes, there's just a couple of guys in Atlanta that you should meet. And I was going to Atlanta. And she said, this is when the TLC album had just come out. Crazy, Sexy, Cool.
The first album.
Yeah, second album.
Oh, second album.
Second album. And she said, there's these guys, Marquez and Brandon, and you should meet them. And I was like, okay, great. She's like, yeah, they've written on a couple of projects. They have a couple of songs on the TLC album. I said, well, what songs did they write? And she said, Waterfalls, and I think the song was called Wicked This Way Comes. And I was like, Waterfalls? That's like my favorite song on the album. Now, Waterfalls wasn't a single yet at this time. Creep was the single. And Creep was exploding.
The height of Creep.
Yeah. Creep was just starting to go. And so I went to Atlanta, tracked Marquez down, and it took a long time to get it done because he didn't know what music publishing was and what it was about. And once we finally connected and I was really able to explain it to him, we got the deal done. And Waterfalls was the first record that I was a part of that went number one. I signed a writer that wrote a song that went number one, and it was an amazing feeling. To see him have that moment was just amazing for me. And I was
he probably didn't even know that was possible. Like, can you sort of explain what music publishing is
in layman's terms?
Yeah, no, in a better way of that thing. He didn't know what it was about to the point that he kept his job. He kept his full-time job. He didn't know what kind of money was in this thing. He was working at a hotel, and he would not quit that job.
And Waterfalls is on the album already.
On the album, became a number one record, and he still would not quit his job for a very long time. But, so music publishing, what we do is we administer the rights of the songwriter's songs. Every time you hear a song, a songwriter is making money. If you hear it in a movie, if you hear it on the radio, you hear it on a record, on an album that you buy, that songwriter is making money. And someone has to go out and collect all of those revenue streams for the songwriters. And that's what we do. We pull all those streams together and make sure the songwriters are being paid. We license the songs. So that's the administration part of it. Yep. That's a quick example of the administration part of it. But the part that other publishers do, and the part that kind of made me popular, is to sign songwriters and then not just collect from the songs that they're doing, is to take songs that they've written and get them to other artists and create opportunities for songwriters. And that's how music publishing is supposed to work. It doesn't work like that all of the time, but that's the service that I began to provide because that's how I knew it was supposed to work. And
so what was the examples of when you first started doing that and was able to carve your niche?
Sure. Like I signed a songwriter by the name of Tamara Savage years ago. This is back in the 90s. And a friend of mine came and played me some of her music. I thought the music was incredible. And I then got her in the studio with other producers who she started writing with, and the songs were really good, but she needed work on the songs. And I told her some advice on how to do the songs or how to write a little better. And she was like, oh, okay. It was almost like she just needed to be told that. And the next song she wrote was Heartbreak Hotel for Whitney Houston, that we gave to Whitney Houston. But before that even came out, I had told Jermaine about her. I said, I got this new songwriter. And he's like, okay, we'll send her down here. I'll give her a try. So I took her to Atlanta. She and I went to Atlanta. and we were at Jermaine's house. He had a studio at his house.
Yeah, he used to work out there.
And so me and Jermaine were playing. He threw on some loops, and she was in there messing around, and me and Jermaine went and played video games. And
he used to do that all the time.
Yeah, we was playing NBA Live, and I remember coming in there, and she said, "Pa, can you come and check this out?" She would call me Pa. And she said, "Can you come and check this song out?" It's like 20 minutes later, and I went in there, and she sang the hook to The First Night, Monica's The First Night. Wow. And I said, "Jermaine, come in here." So he came in there, heard it, and next thing you know, he heard it, and he knew it clicked immediately. He got on the drum machine and started programming the rest of the beat out, and maybe an hour later, the whole song was written.
You're known for being part of the creative process. Like I think I saw some of you and JD in particular. Like you give your input a lot, and I think one thing that JD was quoted once saying, "You're almost so honest that you're too honest." Right? We know how JD is. You know what I'm saying? How strong opinionated he is. Like, what's it like to like step in but sort of step out? Like find that balance of give your opinion on what's going on.
I always tell creatives now that I work with, because I like to coach creatives as well, A&R people. And I try to tell them like you working with songwriters, producers is very delicate. It's very, very delicate, and you have to know when to get in and when to get out. And when you do get in, you better be right. You better be right, or you better have something to offer, because if you don't, they may not ever listen to you again. They may not ever listen to you again. And so I just been blessed with that. I've been able to contribute more than not contribute. But music is in me. Music is in me. And I have a great relationship with songwriters and producers, and they trust me.
Because of your role, do you hear music differently? Like when you're watching a commercial and all of a sudden a song comes up, you're thinking, this person just got paid, or?
No, that's funny. When I hear a commercial, when I see a commercial and then I hear music on there, the first thing I do if I don't know about it, I email or text the person in our sync department, because that's a sync license when that music is used. And I'm like, how much did they get paid for this song? And just making sure you see what the fees are or whatever. And there was a time once where I heard a song on the radio, and I won't say the artist, but and I heard at the end, I was like, it's a sample in there, right? I said, damn, that's a sample. That we had that sample. It's the Earth, Wind and Fire sample. So I sent I think I called my guy at EMI. It was at EMI at the time. And I called my guy, Dag, and I said, hey, did this sample get cleared? And he hadn't heard of the song. I was like, it's a Earth, Wind, and Fire sample in this song. And so he tracked it down, and he says, the guy says there's no sample in the song. I said, Dag, it's a sample in the song. Yeah. And so I said, you got to listen at the end. The end, they messed up and let the sample play without the beat over it, right at the fade out. And so he listened to it again, and he said, okay, I hear it. So he goes back to them, to the label, and the producer's just adamant, like, there's no sample in the song, this, and this. I said, and I knew who the producer was, but the friend's business doesn't come in when you're dealing with people that you're doing business with, right? And so I said, okay, you know what? Call him back. Tell him we tried to be nice about it. So tell him now we're taking the whole song.
Wow.
I said, tell him now we're taking the whole song. They called back. He said, okay, it's a sample in it. He wants to clear
sampling. I saw something where because you work with Jay-Z, we'll get deeper into that obviously, but he had credited you that you sort of helped change the way records were split in terms of, because a lot of times, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a song in theory, the writer and producer share the record, right? 50-50 or some sense. But let's say the producer samples something, the writer would almost get cut out to be 2/3 against 1/3 in a sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it depends on what side of the fence you're on, right? And so for me, I was working with Jay, and I was seeing that he was eating a good portion of the samples, right? And I didn't feel that was fair, because he didn't bring the sample to the song, and he was being charged with it, and I just got aggressive with it, and I said, you know what, he's not going to eat any samples anymore. And I spoke with his team. So I said, anything with his publishing, speak with me. He's not eating samples anymore, and we just got aggressive with it, and we really changed the way that operated. Where if you're a big enough artist, you shouldn't have to do that. You bring a lot to the table just by walking in the room. You know what I mean? And being on the song. And so that was one of the things that we changed with him. And
which era was this at?
Oh, this was early. This was early. This was probably right around Volume 2.
Hard Knock Life, yeah. So right before the big breakthrough, because that record was.
Yeah, that was the first album where I really dug in with Jay and really started to work with him administratively on the publishing. And that particular album, me and Lenny S did every song split on that album, and that was his biggest album, right?
Yeah.
And so it was great because the administration was handled on the publishing, and it was his biggest album, so he got to see the immediate benefit of how that works, and so
it's a lifetime bond now.
Yeah, it has turned into, I've worked with Jay since his first album. Right?
Yeah. So you listen to Reasonable Doubt, and like back then, like I think what's unique about you too is like, people Jay wasn't that big commercial success out the gate, but you saw something there in terms of his content that attracted you, like with Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I was just hearing songs that were so visual that I had never experienced hearing music that was so visual. I was like, I know someone like that, and it just touched me in a way that music hadn't touched me yet. And also I'm a DJ. I started in Denver. I grew up in Denver, and I was a DJ. And I took pride in like breaking records. I didn't know I was breaking records at the time. I didn't know that's what that was called. But, when I would do parties, you have your big songs that are on the radio. Yep. But I would always challenge myself to find something else on the album that wasn't the big song. Because I always felt you could hear the big songs on the radio. When you come to the parties I'm DJing, I got to break new music. And I was picking other songs off the album. So I just have a gift. It's a gift from God. I just hear what I hear what I believe in. Yeah. And luckily what I believe in, a lot of other people come around to believing in it.
Can you still DJ?
I'm sure I could, but I don't. I know I could because I when I go to certain parties, I'm like, this is not it, But DJs make a lot more money than I was making back then. I was making $50 a night.
Was it did you have goals just to be like the biggest DJ until Chuck D stepped in?
Yeah, I guess so. You know what I mean? I just love music, and
it was Chuck D who you met, who inspired you to.
Yeah.
Right?
I met Chuck. They used my turntables for a concert.
Oh,
that's how we met. That's how we met.
The 1200s?
Yeah. Wow. So what happened was they came to Denver for a show, and there was a guy named Dave Klein that used to work at Def Jam. He's from Colorado. And so he's the one who actually sent me Public Enemy's music in the beginning to play in the clubs, and he said they were coming to town, and so they came in for the show. We got to the venue, and the equipment was terrible. And Terminator X was like, I can't DJ on this stuff. It was like it might have been Radio Shack equipment. Like it was like turntables and
bad mixer and shit.
And literally, I said, you can use mine. I said, I use the same turntables you use. And he said, okay. And he got in I said, but they're at my house. So he got in my Ford Granada with me.
Wow.
And drove to my place, and we wrapped my turntables in blankets. I didn't have Anvil cases at the time. And they used my turntables for the show, and that's how me and Chuck met. And after the show, Chuck gave me $60, and he, by the way, I'm in Denver, and I gave it back to him, by the way. Oh, wow. And I was like, it's my honor to do this. And he was like, no. He's like, no. We made money, and you helped us, so you make money. Yeah. And that became a friendship. And a couple of years later, Public Enemy is now huge.
Yeah.
And Chuck was on the lecture circuit. He came back to Colorado to speak at a college, and I went to that event just to hear him speak, and he walked past me to go to the stage, and I tapped him, and he turned, he said, Big John. I was like, oh, he remembers me? Wow. And he said, hang out afterwards, and the bond started then. And a few years later after that, we had that conversation that changed my life.
In terms of just like, don't be satisfied being this the big thing in the smaller market.
Yeah, we were talking, and he had come to town with Ice Cube. It was Chuck, it was Public Enemy, Ice Cube, and Yo-Yo at the concert, and it was right on Ice Cube's
America's Most Wanted.
America's Most Wanted, and they produced that album.
Yeah,
the Bomb Squad produced that album, and so me and Chuck were in, and I was emceeing the concert, so I had become such a popular DJ that I was emceeing that show.
Yeah,
and so we were in the arena watching Ice Cube do his sound check, and Chuck was sitting one row behind me. It was just us two, and we were just talking about stuff, and he said, Big John, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with yourself? And
you're like, I'm popping, man.
By the way, that's exactly what I said. By the way, that's exactly what I said. I was, yeah. Smoke crack, don't you?
Like, I'm the hottest man ever, man.
So, I was confused because I was
Yeah.
like, that's exactly
Am I
what I
doing
said.
wrong?
I was
Is
like,
there
Chuck,
a
what you-
rival
I was
DJ
like,
gonna come up in the market?
I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I got this here.
Yeah.
Like I'm the man here. And he says, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? Because Chuck can get deep. Yeah. And he says, every time I come to Denver, you're the man. Because he had been to Denver quite a few times. Every time I come to Denver, you're the man. But unless you dream bigger, that's all you ever going to be, is the man here. And so he said, you should start a record label. I said, man, I don't have no money to start a record label. And so he started telling me all these things I could do. He made name 3 or 4 things. And
like jobs in the industry?
Just stuff. And I was like, I can't do that. And then he just said, I don't know. I just think you have something to offer to the music business. You were always asking questions about it. And that was the end of the conversation, of that part of the conversation. Yeah. That night when I left the venue and the next day, it just stuck with me and stuck with me and stuck with me. And to the point I was on the hunt for information at that point and got books on it and, found some producers I started to manage out here in California. I'm still living in Denver at the time. They went to USC, came out, met them. I said, listen, and they had good music. Yeah. So
producers, right?
Yeah, producers, Mad Dookie Productions. And so a friend of mine turned me on to them. So I heard the music and I was like, wow, how could nothing not be going on with these guys? So I said, listen, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I know a couple of people because I would go to the music conferences like Jack the Rapper, New Music Seminar,
Gavin, all that.
So all those type of things. But I was going as a DJ, right? I would just go to get free vinyl, to be honest with you. And so
2 copies.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, but if I get some things happening for you guys, maybe you let me manage you. They're like, okay, cool. Met a friend named Steve Prudhomme at Jack the Rapper. Met another guy in New York. It led to a meeting about publishing for these producers, which then led me to Los Angeles for another meeting. And I didn't know a lot about publishing, so I called my friend Steve, who had just kind of got his job at EMI. And I said, I got this meeting. Can you help me out about publishing? He said, yes, come through. So I came through. He schooled me for what he knew about publishing. And when I was leaving, I said, thanks, I'm about to leave to go to the other meeting, right? And he says, well, you're not going to play me the music? I was like, oh, you want to hear it? So I play him the music. He loses his mind. He's like, don't go to that meeting. Let me sign it. And, long story short, I signed those producers to EMI. Yeah. And, me managing them, I figured I better learn music publishing. And a couple of years later, EMI offered me the job. And that's how that happened.
You was taking over the office too, right? You was just
yeah.
Guy, you didn't even work there.
You did your homework.
You was like hogging the conference room and stuff.
Yeah,
he said he figured out the key locks, the key codes in the building.
Oh yeah.
It was a cat burglar.
I would be there because I was still living in Denver, and so when I came to LA, my only real relationship was EMI.
Yeah,
right, because I had
Yeah.
business with them. So, I would be there all the time, and I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a lot of money. I was staying at my aunt's house, my mother's aunt's house in South Central, sleeping on a twin bed. Because then I finally had decided to try to get out here more often, so I needed a place to stay, and she would let me stay with her rent-free. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. But anyway, at EMI, I would be there all the time, like all day, all night. And so one time I was going up there, and I seen someone put the code in, right? And so I was over their shoulder like, oh, and I literally would go back. After we would leave, I would go back. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I would go back, put the code in, and I would be in there listening to music all night, blasting music in the conference room. And again, I didn't have a cell phone, so I would use their phone for long-distance phone calls.
Wow.
And that's how I would call around to the companies in New York and call family and everything.
So you literally cracked the code in the game. But even as a music publisher, like, you recruit talent. Like, what are good characteristics and traits that someone has to have in order to make it in this business?
Well, for me, I mean, of course, it starts with great music, right? Great songs. But that is almost the easy part. For me, it's like, do you have a desire to win? Can you take being told no? Can you take being told your music isn't good? Can you take being told not yet? And if you can't handle that type of stuff, I'm not saying you won't make it, but it's probably best we don't work together. Because you gotta have this resilience, have this resiliency about you to really to really be able to push forward and have really, really thick skin, because you're going to hear no a lot in this business, a lot. And, that's the challenge right now with, I guess it's with any generation, to be honest with you. Everyone wants to start at the top. Rarely do people want to put in the work. And what I try to explain to people, which, I've learned, is being at the top is fantastic, but not as great as the journey to the top.
Yeah. And your whole thing is that you credit your success to getting with these artists in the beginning of their journeys, like Jay.
Yeah.
Like even Beyonce. It almost seems like a hit list, of dream team of artists, like almost unreal. If you mention a Jay or B, a Kanye, a Drake, a Usher, like that's insane. All one man.
Snoop,
Big
Buddha,
Jon Platt,
Fab,
Snoop.
Jeezy,
How,
Mary,
John?
Yin Yang Twins. You know what I'm saying?
But you managed
Whisper song?
Rick Rock. By the way, that's Mr. Collie Park who produced that record.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But what is it that you saw in these artists in the beginning? Like, give me an example of one, and like what you saw and you was like, okay, I want to be in business with this person.
It's funny. Like Usher is a good story. Usher was this teenager who had an album, initial debut release, and it did okay.
Yeah. Puffy was behind it a little
Yeah,
bit.
it did good. But he had this song called "Think of You." Puff did that song, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. That was the hottest song on the album, right? And it was kind of a hit. And so, actually, it was a hit. Puff, sorry, Puff, it was a hit. But he was working on his second album, and I don't even know if I knew he was working with Jermaine yet at the time, but I eventually found out he was working with JD, and so he was performing at this City of Hope event. It's a longer story for Usher, but I want to tell you what the moment that it really connected with me. And he was performing at a City of Hope function, and LA and Babyface were being honored. They were the honorees that year. It was 20 years ago, actually, this year. And so they had all of their artists perform. I think TLC performed. I think Tony Braxton performed. And Usher performed. He was one of the earlier acts to perform. Now you got to remember, he only had one album out, so he didn't have a lot of material. But I remember like it was yesterday. He comes out in this red leather suit and did Bobby Brown. He performed Bobby Brown songs because LA and Face wrote those songs, and he performed
Like
Bobby
Don't Be
Brown
Cruel,
songs.
Every
Oh, he
Little Step,
performed. I mean, he performed
Like a medley.
Yeah, he performed, and I was like, I remember sitting there. I was like, that guy's a star. He's a star. And I just went on the mad pursuit after that, after him. And then, maybe a few months later, You Make Me Wanna came out to the moon. Wow. So, I often say people, when they speak about me, they speak about, in my work, they speak about, the icons that I work with, right? Yeah. And that's fantastic because that's exactly what they are now. But it didn't start that way. Yeah. It started out of something that I just heard that was fantastic, and I was like, I want to be a part of that. And then they went on to be global icons, and I think that's how I've been able to maintain such great relationships. Is that I was there in the beginning, and with some of them, I had a hand in the journey. I had a hand and did my work for the part of the ride, and it's fantastic.
A lot of new artists say in interviews and things of that nature that, when they're getting into the business, never sign a publishing deal. What are your thoughts about that?
You have to educate yourself. Because I don't know why they would say that. So I don't know their journey. They may themselves or know of someone who signed some sort of an agreement and it wasn't a fair agreement, right? So I can't speak on their path. What I will say, in today's business, people have to be careful what they sign. Because, now we have streaming, we have YouTube, we have all of these things, SoundCloud, all these different ways where you can get music out quickly.
Yeah.
That what hurts my heart the most is when someone does have some success and then they want to do a publishing deal, right? Because, publishers is kind of like your first real check from a lot of people. Because when you sign a recording agreement, you get some money for your pocket, but most of that money is to record.
Into your budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So people go to a publisher to get that real check to live off of, right? But there are times where a lot of these kids, they're getting these songs that are taken off really quickly, and then they want to do a publishing deal only to find out that they can't because they signed it away to someone at the studio, someone in the streets, someone wherever, like someone who was going to put you on, and it's in the contract so deep. And if you don't know what it is,
it's buried in there. Yeah,
like a record you could touch, right? Publishing you can't touch. You can't touch it, so people don't view it as valuable until let's say for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you two wrote a song, and let's say you signed to the guy, whoever it was, right? And you didn't know publishing was in the agreement. Let's say B-Dot didn't sign anything, right? And the song takes off. B-Dot comes to me. We do a deal, $200,000, right? And then you're like, oh, I want to do a deal too. And come to find out, you can't.
Wait, why I gotta be the one? Why I gotta be the one when I hear John?
Yeah, because
Can we reverse it?
Yeah, because of that piece of paper you signed.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I can offer anything to the kids coming up right now, because they're doing really good work.
Yeah.
And
is it harder now because records take off so quick now in this era? Like even more so, there's like a grab to, okay, let me just get on, let me rush to get that big check.
No, I don't know if it's harder right now, but I do know what I can say is harder to find people that are in it for your career. Okay. I think the business is moving so fast right now that people are chasing the records instead of helping build careers. And that's what I know how to do, and that's what I believe in is and I'll tell anyone, if they're coming to do a deal with me and we're negotiating or we're talking about a deal and they say, well, let's say, Dot is coming to me and we're talking about, with his lawyer and him or whatever about what the deal is worth. And he says, well, such and such is offering me this, and let's say it's more money. And I'll say, that's great. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you, if you want the check, go there. If you want the career, you come here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd say it all day because I just feel what we bring you is if you come with us or if you come with me and the teams that I build, that you're going to get that money anyway and then some.
Yeah.
Because we're going to work with you to do it.
Yeah, so you say that. You keep your confidence in it even if you lose out on somebody. You were saying, like, that deal's going to last like 3 or 4 years. He'll be back around. She'll be back around.
No, I don't know if I said that arrogant, but
He'll be back.
But I do believe that, listen, all deals have an expiration date on them, right? And so, I feel people should be where they want to be.
Yeah.
Period. Not just because of the check, not just because of what someone said.
You
should be with who you feel comfortable with, whether that's me or someone else. That's just how it works. But I also know that deals end. And if it's something I'm super passionate about, and I don't really chase deals that I'm not super passionate about, then I know when your deal is coming up and I'm going to be there and we can try to do this dance again.
Wow. Would you take someone like off the streets? Like, how do you find these talents, writers and artists? Is it like they have to have a buzz already, or is it just?
I could care less. All I care about is great music, All I care about is great music. I mean, I've literally done that. I've done that more than the other, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like I signed a writer by the name of Harold Lilly, right? And so a friend of mine was meeting with me, manager, playing me an artist who was an established artist for a publishing deal. And I liked the songs, but I didn't love a ton of them. They just didn't resonate with me, right? And so, I was straight up with him. I said, I don't know if this is for me. So we're just talking. I turned the music down, but it's like in a whisper. And we're talking. As we're talking, I hear this song. And I'm talking to him, but I'm hearing the song. It's like literally so low. So the song goes off, and I said, let me ask you something. She wrote that song? It was a duet. And he was like, I think I played it again. He was like, I don't think she wrote that song. I was like, oh, this is awkward. I said, so I say to him, well, who wrote it? He was like, I don't know. So I says, can you call her? So he calls her, and she says, that's my friend Harold. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm trying to talk. He's like, give me the phone. So he takes the phone back. I'll get all the information for you. And I didn't hear from him the next, or I assumed I wasn't going to hear from him the next day or two. But that night, I remembered one of my closest friends from Denver, and he was dating a girl at the time. He ended up marrying her. But he would always say this artist that he was meeting with was her cousin. And it would go in one and out the other. It didn't mean anything to me. And it popped in my head, and I called him. I said, hey, didn't you say your girl is cousins with this artist? He said, yeah. I said, can you call her? I'm trying to find a songwriter. All I know is his name is Harold. So she does that, and he calls me back the next day. Okay, here goes. She couldn't find her cousin, but she talked to her aunt. And the guy's name is Harold Lilly, and his mom's name is such and such, and here goes his phone number. Gave me the phone number. I called Harold. He didn't know what a publishing deal was. He didn't know anything. He thought it was a prank phone call, actually. And so, long story short, we got together. We did a deal. He wouldn't call me back forever, by the way. Yeah. And then one day he was in the studio. I didn't know this till after I signed him. He was in the studio with a bunch of other writers and producers and working on stuff because he worked with Missy a lot as well. And so, just trying to get on, right? And so they're telling stories about fake people in the industry. And he's like, yeah, man, some dude named Big John called my house talking about publishing deal or something like that. And he says the studio got quiet. And so he's talking, and the guy says, some guy sits next to him. He said, wait a minute, Big John called your house? He's like, yeah. Who is he? He's like, he called your house. He's like, yeah. What'd he say? He said, you want to do a publishing deal? He said, well, what'd you do? I didn't call him back. And they just start going crazy. You ain't calling back. Like, that's the guy. He called me back. We got the deal done. And then, so that's a guy off the street. But the beauty of that whole story is he came to LA, starts writing these songs, everything. He gets in the studio with a very young Kanye West, and they write a song called You Don't Know My Name for Alicia Keys, and then Harold won a Grammy. He won a Grammy Award.
He won a Grammy?
He won a Grammy. I was sitting right next to him when he won the Grammy, and I'll never forget that moment.
And I saw some of you work with Jeezy, and I think he was saying it was an important conversation when you was kind of telling him, because that's somebody who had to transition out of the streets into this business. Yeah. And you sort of brought it to life to him that this is now your path. This is your career.
Yeah. Jeezy is one of those artists where, first of all, he was starting to bubble on the mixtapes, right? And I wanted to sign him. I knew what this was going to be. I knew what it was going to be.
So I
wanted to sign him, and he was not interested in doing a publishing deal at all. At all. It would call his lawyer, like, nah, he doesn't want to meet you. He doesn't want to do a publishing deal. Like, he's not interested in money. I don't know that part. Oh, okay. So one night I was in Tallahassee, Florida, visiting my brother, and I was in a Holiday Inn. And it was torture, trust me. So I didn't want to stay in the room, so I ended up going downstairs because that was the only place I could get internet was in this little bitty makeshift business center they had. And so I got on the internet, and I'm just doing stuff, and I typed up a deal, and I sent it to his lawyer. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I had nothing else to do, and I'm like typing up the deal. I sent it to the lawyer. Lawyer calls me Monday. He says, "What is this you sent me? Like, I told you Jeezy doesn't want to do a deal." I said, I know that's what you said, but you're his lawyer, and I sent you an offer, and you have an obligation now to show him the offer.
Wow.
And so he sent the offer to Jeezy, and he says, he calls me back, a few days later. He says he still doesn't want to do a publishing deal, but he wants to meet you. He wants to meet.
You like that approach. Yeah,
he wants to meet you. He wants to know who's so crazy that they send in offers when he didn't want to do a deal. I went to Atlanta and met him at this house. I mean, this house was big. It's big. No new artists live like this.
Big, John, but
no new artists live like this.
Did you come alone?
I did go alone, actually. I did go alone. I think his lawyer might have been with me. But and I went, and so then Jeezy comes, and we sat down, and we start talking. And he said, I like you, man. And then we got a deal done. But it took forever to get the deal done. Like, people don't know, I signed Jeezy in the Chicago airport. That's where we signed the deal.
In the airport.
In the airport. I met him in D.C. That's where we were supposed to sign it because, the first album had just come out. He's like, come to the record release party. We're going to do the deal then. And the deal was fully negotiated. Me and his lawyer, we go to D.C.
The terms already agreed upon.
Yeah, it's deal. We had execution copies. Yeah. Go to D.C.
He would put that Jay Jenkins down.
And so I got, by the way, I'm excited. So I hired a photographer. I hired a photographer, the whole everything, right? So I'm at the hotel. I asked the hotel, can I use a room for the pictures, the whole everything, right?
Thing. You had the billboard thing.
Yeah,
ready.
so then Jeezy walks in, got the shades on, everything. He sits down. We start chopping it up. I was like, yo, man, all right, let's do this, man. So he's like, all right, man, let's do it later. I was like, we're right here right now. Right. Like, let's do it after the show. I'm like, after the show? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So we go to the show at this club. I mean, he turned this club out. I mean, people was hanging from the rafters, singing every single word, every single Jeezy song. We get back to the hotel, Jeezy's nowhere to be found.
He ran off for you.
Nowhere to be found. So the next morning, I show up again. I'm leaving. They said, well, he'll do it in the morning. I said, all right. I don't know, no artist is waking up that early. So I go anyway, wait for 2 or 3 hours, no Jeezy. So now I have to go to the airport. I'm out. I feel a little disrespected. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm flew all the way out here. It's all good. So he calls me a couple of days later. Oh, my bad. You know, such and such. I really want to get with you, but I got a bunch of stuff I got to do, and we'll catch up at a different time. I'm like, okay. I said, where you going? He said, well, I got to go to Chicago. I was like, I'm going to be in Chicago, because I was. Literally, I said, I'm going to be in Chicago then. And I could hear him on the phone go, like I could just hear it. And so I meet him in Chicago. Can't find Jeezy. Give me the runaround again. Everywhere he say he's gonna be at, he's not there. Yeah. Right? I'm in my hotel. It's a Saturday. I've done my business that I was supposed to do there, and I'm trying to be out. And my phone rings, and it's Jeezy. I'm like, what's up, man? And so he's talking to me. And so then Jeezy goes, man, I know you want to do this deal, this, and this. He goes, can I get a little more money? I was like, what are you talking about? The deal's negotiated. It's a great deal. Jeezy got one of the best deals I ever did. And so I said, it's a great deal. So we talking. He's like, all right, man, I'm messing with you. I'm ready to do it. I was like, all right, where you at? He goes, I'm at the airport. I said, the airport? He's like, yeah, I'm leaving in about an hour and a half.
Oh, to leave Chicago?
Yeah, to leave. I was like, I'll be there. He said, you ain't going to make it here. I said, I'll be there. I went downstairs to the concierge. I said, I need a notary public. You know, most concierges are notary publics. And you got to have those notarized, at least back then. I said, can you ride with me to the Chicago airport? He was like, no, we don't do that. I said, trust me, ride with me. It's a big deal. I get the guy to ride with me. We go to the airport. He's at this little private airport because he was flying private that day. And he been flying private back then, just so you know. Wow. So we go there, and Jeezy was there. And we went in a little room, and we got the business done. And I remember I gave him the check. It was a big check, too, by the way. A lot of zeros. A big check. I gave him the check, and he gave me the check back.
What?
He said, what am I supposed to do with this? I said, I don't know, cash it. So he gives me the check back. He said, keep it for me. And he left. Deal done. He gives me the check back to hold for him. So I get back to L.A. I call his lawyer. I said, Jeezy gave me the check back. I said, I'm going to send it to you. Send it to his lawyer. And the lawyer holds on to the check. All of a sudden, about 3 months later, I get a call from the lawyer. Hey, can we send you this check back? Because it's at the end of the year. You don't want to get tax on it, right? Till the following year. I said, what check? He goes, the check from Jeezy's advance. I said, you guys didn't cash that check yet? He said, no. He sends me the check back.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
I send the check to New York. I said, we're going to write the check after the first of the year. All good. That happens like clockwork, right? April, I get a call from Jeezy. This is like 8 months later, by the way. I get a call from Jeezy. Yo, man, what's up, man? And we are close at this time, right? Mm-hmm. We're super close. Man, what's up, man? I said, what's going on, man? Man, my lawyer tripping, man. I said, what's going on? Man, I went to the office to get my check, and they can't find my check. So I'm like, what check? The check you gave me. I said, the publishing check? Yeah. I said, you haven't cashed that check yet? Wow. Nah, man, I went there to get it. They playing with my money. They can't find my check. I'm about to fire all them, man. It's going to be some problems. I said, Jeezy, calm down. I said, I could check within 10 minutes and find out if the check has been cashed. I said, it hasn't been cashed, I promise you. If it hasn't been cashed, we'll just give you a new check. You could do that? I said, yeah. Called. Of course, it was no problem. It hasn't been done. We got him a new check. But it was 8-9 months. Why do you think he didn't
cash it?
Jeezy had money, man. That's why he didn't cash it. He didn't need to cash it.
Wow. So why do you think he signed if he had the money? Like, that's the whole thing. Like,
you could have the most money in the world. You still need someone to administer your publishing, right? You know, that's a job. Yeah. That's a job, and that's what we do. Yeah. Right. That's what I do. That's what the companies I work for does. That's what music publishers do. You can have the most money in the world, the biggest hits or whatever. You still need someone to track down all those revenue streams for you and make sure you're being paid correctly. That's very important.
You said in an interview once, you said that people used to watch the charts. Like, what is your litmus test, or how do you evaluate a record today?
Music, man. Just the music. I don't care about no charts. I don't. Like, I believe if it's great, that part will take care of itself, right? I'm more concerned about how many times can we do that, not if we will do that. I never signed a songwriter thinking they have the number 37 song on the charts. I always sign a songwriter because I think they're going to write number one songs. Yeah. Some of them have written them already, and some haven't written them yet. But I believe they will.
You always, I saw something you said you listen also for a moment of greatness.
That's it.
And that's what you love about Beyonce, that she has that and takes it to another level.
You have really done your homework. You're really trying to slide her name up in this. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Elliot. Yeah, really. You are really,
No, but like, what is like is there moments in Beyonce's catalog when you listen to certain
there he
songs
goes again.
that you enjoyed it? No, just as a music head, like what you hear lyrically that you enjoy.
No, listen, it's we make music together. So my thing is, what I say is, what I mean by when I listen to a moment of greatness, when I listen to music, I'm just looking for anything that's great. It could be a verse, it could be the beat, it could be the bridge, it could be just a run in the song.
Yeah.
Is there anything great in here that we could build upon to make the whole thing great? And, she listens to music the same way.
Yeah.
That's how we connect.
Yeah.
We listen for anything great, anything, and let's build on that.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to
So
name
with
a bunch
some
of
artists
songs.
like that, you have more of a hands-on in the creation process, like with those type of some artists. You have more of a
it's just. I mean, it's not just her. It's other artists as well. It's just, whenever I feel it, I don't do it just to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have such great relationships with artists. Is I'm not sending them songs every day, right? I send them songs when I feel there's a song that's right for them.
Yeah.
And when I send songs, people listen.
Yeah.
They may hit me back and say they don't like it.
Yeah.
That's okay. But they listen because I'm not hitting them every day. And
Absolutely.
when I send them, it's usually something special.
Well, I think a great story with that is that you worked with Jay for so long, and then Empire State of Mind was a record that you brought a demo of it to him.
Sure.
And developed into a record, which became his first #1 record.
Yeah, I sent him that song on Father's Day. It's before he had kids, if I'm not mistaken. And but I did, and only reason I was in town was for B's show. And that day before, I went to a barbecue. That's where I found the record at. It was at a barbecue. Some songwriters that we working with at EMI, Angela Hunt and Janae Suo, they wrote the song. It was an R&B song. A lot of people don't know that.
No.
It was an R&B song. 2-minute R&B demo. 2 verses, 2 hooks.
Concrete Jungle, the whole thing. Yeah.
I was in there. And so, but it was singing verses. And so they were supposed to send me an instrumental and an instrumental with only the hook. But they wrote the song in London, so they couldn't track the producer down to get the parts. And so they just sent me, I said, well, just send me the regular version, right? Which they did the next day. They didn't send it where they were supposed to, and I thought they were flaked on me. And the next morning I woke up and the songs were in my inbox. And I listened to it. I might have listened at my computer like 20 times. That's another thing. Before I send the song out, I've quality controlled that song like nobody's business, because like I'm listening and I'll tell the writer to fix something. Anyway, I listened to the song over and over on my computer, and I was like, oh, this is it.
What did you hear that you thought it was?
I mean, the beat was the same beat. You know what I'm saying? It was the same beat.
State of Mind, yeah.
And that hook, it was so Jay-Z to me. It was so, what those words were saying, it was so Jay-Z. And I sent him an email. I said, email the song to him. And I said, hey, check this out. I think it could be big for you. Disregard the verses. And he hit me back 10 minutes later, and he says, yo, happy Father's Day, ... Send it ASAP. So I'm looking on my BlackBerry at the time. I'm looking at my BlackBerry. I'm like, I sent it already. Something, he's looking at it on his phone. He knew I sent him a song. He wants to hear it. I said, I sent it already. It was attached in the email. And then I went to the gym. And I came back from the gym, and I got my device out of the safe, and I'm looking. I get all these emails from Jay. I'm like, why is he emailing me so much? Because once I've sent it, I'm moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is Jay emailing me so much? And I send it. He says, no, send the Pro Tools. I'm cutting it tomorrow. I'm like, send the Pro Tools to what? I'm like, oh, he's talking about the song. Wow. I start flipping out in my hotel room, and then he sent me another email in that series of emails, and he says, do you have any idea what you just did by sending me this song? Wow. And, that night, I go to the show, the B show at the Garden. And me and Hope was in the dressing room, and he said, yo, you sent me one today. And he said he wrote it already. I said, how'd you write it already? It's like lyrics on the song. Like, he said, nah, I wrote it already. I said, how? Like, it's verses. And he said, no, at the end, it's just a couple seconds of music. And he just kept rewinding that little couple of seconds.
Oh, and wrote to that.
And wrote the whole song right then. Wow. And that night was the night we came up with putting Alicia on the song, right there in the dressing room. 2 days later, he hits Alicia, or her manager or whoever, because I know her manager left the studio and called me about it. He's like, what's up with this song? I'm like, what song? He's like, I just left your man, Jay. He got this song. I said, oh, that song. I said, yeah, she should do that. And she should do that. And, you know, she did the song, and it became a monster.
What did it mean for you to induct him to the Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, last year?
I mean, it meant everything, because that was not what it was supposed to be. You know, I'm on the board of Songwriters Hall of Fame. And so what I've been able to do, being on the board, is walk them into our culture. You know, there had never been a rapper inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and it took a few rounds of discussions, you know, a year or two, and to explain it to them that, you know, rappers are songwriters, you know, hip hop producers are songwriters, and Jay made it to the ballot. Now, you know, we can fight and click and claw to get you on the ballot, but the voters vote you in.
Yeah.
So he got on the ballot, but the voters voted him in. And that was a very rewarding moment, you know, because, you know, he is one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And then a couple of days before the ceremony, and we knew it was close because of the babies and everything, but he was still coming.
Yeah.
And
family was there, everybody.
Yeah. He hit me and said, I'm not going to be able to make it. And so I said to him, okay, let me figure this out, because it was a big deal.
Yeah. And
I hit him back. I said, you know what? We could push it. We could push it to the following year. And he hit back, no, I'm going in now. Like, yeah. He said, I'm going in now. He said, I'm going in now. He said, you accept it. He said, you accept it. He goes, you've worked just as hard as this as I have. And it really touched me when he said that. You know, I actually started crying when I got that text. It was like an emotion I hadn't felt. And you know, in 2 days I had to pull together
the responsibility of it.
Yeah, the responsibility of it in a speech. I you know, did that whole speech, but it was rewarding. It meant everything to me. It meant everything to me to share that with him and his family.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Like the whole idea, like I think you had said in the speech that the stigma of you guys are not songwriters, you're not quite there yet. Like there's such like, you know, we come from loving hip hop and we respect the MC, but It seems like we always have to fight for people to view that our works of art is real poetry. It's real music.
Yeah, it is real music. And I think that, you know, you have these, you know, generations of what we call purists, or, you know, some would call them music snobs, or whatever you want to call it, right? And we have that ourselves with hip hop, right? We're music snobs with generations of hip hop, right? It just happens. But I think that, you know, I don't know why it is. I know it's not fair. I know it's not right, because we watch these people write songs. I think people view it because people sample, right? I think they view that as not songwriting. Mm-hmm. And I do view it as songwriting. If you and B Dot write a song together, you guys did what we call a co-write, right? So I view sampling as the same way, right? I view if a producer samples something, they just wrote a song with whoever they sampled. The other person just wrote their part 30 years ago, right?
You just gotta admit it's Earth, Wind, and Fire, what it is, man.
Yeah, and it's a co-write. And so, and that's one part of it. But the beauty of sampling is that I've seen people literally cry when they get the royalty checks. Like, it's people who are like about to lose their houses and whatever, and someone will sample a song and then the royalties come in and they get a royalty check for $400,000. Wow. And they literally cry over the phone.
Because there'll be a lot of great soul musicians that aren't.
By the way, that's the first check, because then it's checks and checks and checks and checks after that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sampling changes lives, and it keeps music alive. It keeps some of these copyrights alive. And, you know, we could talk about Earth, Wind, and Fire's song. That was a very well-known song that was sampled, right? I knew that song. But then you have people like Premier and all these people who dig in the crates, and they want to sample the stuff that isn't popular, that wasn't known,
obscure,
right? And it's changing these people's lives. You know, when Rich Harrison sampled the Shy-Light song, it changed the guy's life for Crazy in Love. You know what I mean? Like, there's still checks coming to this day for that. Like, that changed someone's life.
What are some of the most, like, I guess, valuable songwriters or songs that have come across your desk? We were debating that in the car on the way here.
Rich Harrison, who wrote Crazy in Love, Marquez, who wrote Waterfalls, you know, all the J stuff, all the B stuff, you know what I mean? Usher, Jermaine. I work with Mario Winans. He gave me a CD of songs, just demos, and like the number 13 song on the chart was a song called Can't Be Friends, which gave to Trey Songz. Right. I sent that to Mike Karen on a Sunday. You know, it doesn't, and he hit me back literally on the Sunday. It's like, yeah, this is really good. I'm going to get it straight to Trey. And Trey recorded the song, and it became a monster, you know. But it's a team effort, you know, because the condition I sent that song in, it was just 2 verses and hooks. And Trey recorded the song as it was, and Craig Cowman told him it needs to be a bridge on the song. And he made Trey write a bridge to the song. And the bridge is like one of the best parts of the song. You know, it brought it all together. Like, you know, that's the other part too. You have to, I've been blessed to work with people who either have vision or trust my vision. Because every song that I pitch it's not in the condition where it's ready to be like that record. You know, it's like the idea of what it could be. And can we pull it all together? Like, you know, like you're talking about the Empire State of Mind. It was a demo, like Jay did his verses, which was ridiculous, right? Alicia did her part, but that bridge wasn't on the song. Alicia's part, throw your hands in the air, you know, all that. None of that was on the song. None of that was on the demos. Like, she added all of that, big part of the song, right? So, you know, it's about having the vision of you know, Drunk in Love, same thing. That was that's the queen at her ultimate genius to me. Like, if you heard the condition of that song that she received, but it was moments of greatness in it, and she connected with it, and she finished. I'm talking about this night and day. It's night and day. When I would send that song to 10 other artists, and 10 other artists would be like, "Don't ever send me another song."
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Another interesting that is, like, even saw in the modern day was a record like Ape Shit, where that comes out of Pharrell and Migos, and it ends up being with the Carters. Like, can you talk about the journey of a record like that?
I mean, I didn't work on that record, but it's like, you know, you really want, you know, the magic of a special artist is they get a demo of a song and turn it into their own song, you know, and that's what happened at that song. Like, at a certain point, you don't hear that. You hear of an artist turning it into their own song. Like, one of my biggest frustrations is if you give a song to an artist and they sing it exactly like the demo.
Same tone.
Same exactly like the demo. So, you know, it happens at times. Sometimes it's still a hit, but, you know, great artists, they, you know, and you have to teach songwriters that as well, because sometimes songwriters will write a song and they write it as if they're the artist, right? So they sing it like it's their song. And I teach younger songwriters that no. That's not gonna work that way. You gotta sing this song regular. It's not your song. And you have to leave room for the artist to own the song. Because a lot of times, let's say it's a girl or a guy who could really sing, and you send that song to the artist as is, sometimes the artist is like, I don't want to do it. It's not they don't like the song. They don't see their way into the song. You got to leave them a path to get into the song. And they're like, well, that's their song.
Another frustration I know you have is with the word urban.
Yeah. I don't know.
The urban music, how the record companies used to brand things, urban music departments. Oh, still do, yeah. But they say you're very adamant that you would love that to be eradicated in terms of
because that's business. I don't know, you don't call it that, right? I don't I mean I think we've been conditioned to call it that, right? But I can tell you none of us came up with that term, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what urban means. I view it as a way to make it accessible to others, right? But what people don't understand is that hip hop is the most inclusive genre in the world. We don't have to dumb it down by calling it urban. You know, I was just in Malaysia, and a guy wanted me to meet an artist. He's like, we really want to get with some of your songwriters, some of your producers, and he says, you know, because black culture, he called it. He said the globalization of black culture is taking over. And I wanted to hug him. I wanted to hug him because he didn't say urban music. You know, he said the globalization of black culture. And this is an Asian guy, right? And I wanted to hug him because he wasn't afraid to say that. You know, and that's what this is. But the thing that people have to remember, and I'll say it again, is that hip hop music, the culture that I grew up in, that made me who I am, is the most inclusive culture of any genre.
Absolutely.
That's a fact.
So it's not about that. You can if it's called black music, whatever you want to call it, everyone can participate.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone can participate.
Is there anyone that you missed out on?
Yeah. You really want to go there? Like, I'm not going to say the artist because this is on tape and this is whatever. But yes, I missed out on a very big artist, a massive artist, I might add. And it wasn't that I was trying to sign the artist. Someone else was, and they wanted my opinion on it. And, you know, it was around the time that, you know, Volume 2 it came out, right? And I started asking these questions like, well, how much is the deal? And all these type of things. And in my mind, I'm like, well, Jay didn't get that. Like, I wouldn't pay that. And I just went way too far down the rabbit hole. And all the person wanted to know if I thought the music was good, right? And so my energy influenced them to not do the deal. And it became a massive artist. And you know, and it was said, you know, the urban legend became that I told him don't do the deal, right? I didn't do the deal. And that's not what happened. But at the end of the day, I did own it because I just thought back. I said, well, what did I do wrong? And I was like, you know what? I didn't just do what was asked of me. And that's very important. It's like working with creators. Like I said, it's very delicate. And I learned a very important lesson then. But then I signed Kanye West.
No, I heard that was a hunt too, right? Because you had competition. Another rival company had popped up at the last minute, and you had to really fight to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I had been trying to sign Kanye for quite a while, actually. And
well, before you get that, like, remember from that era, he was such a respected as a producer. What did you see in him as an artist to step in the forefront? Because some people was like, oh, stick to producer. Most of us was like, oh, you're a great producer. We didn't necessarily see him as a artist at that time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you asked me what I find in songwriters, what makes me want to sign them. I said passion, right? I had a tiger. You'd be very hard-pressed to find someone more passionate about music than Kanye West. Very hard-pressed. So he has that always. You know, my first real meeting with Kanye, we were doing a conference in Chicago, one of those music conferences. And so we were on this panel together. And so it gets to the end, and they always ask the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And, you know, whatever, right? And I hate those questions, right? And so I give whatever, little generic answer, because I'm never showing cards. And so it gets to Kanye at the end. And he said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm just relaxing. He says, you know, I guess I hope to get my weight up so somebody like Big John will sign me. And I remember, I said, did he? I looked, I said,
called you out?
I said, did he just play me? Like, I was like, did he just play me? I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? And so, you know, we stayed in touch, or, you know, a couple of years later, we got more in touch. And his manager at the time was G. Roberson, really good friend of mine. And so we never could get a deal done, you know, because he wanted what he wanted. And at that time, he was a producer, and he did sample a lot, right? And so, but G said, when we're ready to do one, we're going to come to you. And so, you know, at this time, I think Harold might have wrote the song with him in the studio. And then he had the Ludacris record out, the stand-up record.
You don't know my name, you saying that.
Yeah, and so I said, damn, things are really starting to come together for him. And so maybe we should do this deal. And I called G. It was on a weekend, and he was like, oh, man, Big J, man, we did a deal already. I said, what do you mean you did a deal? Like, you said we were going to do a deal when it was time to do a deal. And so he said, actually, you know what the crazy part about it? Real talk. We were in this exact studio when we had that conversation.
Here in LA?
Yeah, that room.
Wow.
Right there. We were in this. When I was walking down the hall, I was like, this the room me and G had the conversation about Kanye in.
It's crazy.
And so anyway, we're talking, and he says, yeah, I think he signed it on Friday. I said, what's the deal? And so he's like, I don't know all of what it is. So I knew who his lawyer was. And he's like, well, call her. And, you know, if it hasn't been signed yet, maybe we can figure something out. I'm like heated at G, right? Yeah. So, because it happened really fast, apparently. And so I'm hitting the lawyer, and she finally hits me back Sunday night. And she says, John, the deal is done. He hasn't signed it, but he's signing it tomorrow. Furthermore, I'm getting married next weekend, and I'm not negotiating another deal. I'm not negotiating a whole other deal. I'm like, no, I could get it done. I can get it done. So the next morning, she said, you can't get it done. The next morning, I wake up. I call Kanye, and he's asleep. So I talked to him. He's like, what's up? I say, man, I heard you was doing a deal. I said, listen, you know we always wanted to do a deal. I said, let me ask you something. All things being equal, you roll with me, right? He was like, yeah, I guess. I was like, cool. Hung up the phone. I said, Kanye said he's coming with me. I called her. So she's heated. And, you know, I told my legal team to get on it, and I actually gave him a much better deal than the deal he had on the table. Once I found out the terms, I was like, oh, I know how to do this deal. and I gave him a much more lucrative deal, and literally got the deal done in 24 hours. And got him signed, and it's been a great run, you know. And that's a beauty thing, because Kanye is a genius. He don't need no help with music, no help with anything. But one thing I will feel proud about, you know, because I was building this community. I didn't know it at the time, but I was building a community of songwriters and artists. And so, you know, Kanye, now he's an artist. Now he comes out. College Dropout is that record, right? It's that album. And I get a call from G, and he asks me, can I do him a favor? I said, what's up? He says, we want to get on this Usher tour. I was like, oh, okay. Well, what's going on? He's like, yeah, we're trying to get on it, but we're not getting no traction. This. Can you call them? Because we know you're close with them. I'm like, sure, I'll call. So I called Usher's mom, who was managing him at the time. I called JP, and we're talking, and I'm telling her, you know, I really would appreciate if you guys could take Kanye West out on the tour with you. And she was like, I don't know, this, and this. I was like, nah, he's really good. Trust me, this guy he's the one. And so I convinced her, and she was like, okay, I'm cool with it. I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. She's like, no, you got to talk to Usher now. I'm like, okay. So track Usher down. He calls me that night, and I'm telling him about Kanye. I said, really, Usher, I really need this. Can you take him out? Like, I promise you won't be disappointed. And I remember him saying to me, is he really that good, Jon? And I was like, yeah, he is. Trust me. And he said, all right, man, I'll do it. And that was the first major tour Kanye went out on.
Wow.
Was the Usher tour.
Wow.
And that I take a lot of pride in that. And I learned a lesson from that too. Like when your friends call you and you can help, you help.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened with us.
Yeah. Seemed like another great producer you helped was Pharrell. In the beginning stages, like you talk about bad deals and stuff. It seemed like you had to get him out of a situation, or get him, or basically educate him on what's going on with publishing. And
nah, Pharrell is like, you know, he's a dreamer. You know what I'm saying? And that, I am as well. But like, you know, he's so ambitious. It's like, you know, it's just about, and this is not exclusive to Pharrell. It's with any artist. It's like, you want to, if they're going to do something, you want to help them do it the right way, if you can help. And that's really what it is with Pharrell. Like, that's my brother, and we talk a lot about things. He did do one particular situation that I begged him not to do, and he did it. He regretted it. But as I say, all things have an expiration date, and we was able to come around and fix it and help him fix it. And he's sitting in a very good place now.
What's it like working with him, and then also seeing him like develop out of, you know, being a part of this superstar producer duo, and then having his own artistic career?
I mean, Pharrell he's just a songwriter. You know, the guy works so hard, you know, whether it's Pharrell, whether it's Rodney Jerkins, whether it's Jermaine, whether it's all these people, you know, even Dr. Dre, right? And I always say to people, it's no accident of who's at the top. It's just no accident, because all of these people that we've talked about, a lot of artists today, icons, all do different things, right? And I've been able to see from my own two eyes, there's one thing that they all do the same. They all outwork everybody else. They all outwork everybody else. And Pharrell, in his heyday, he worked every day. In his days, he wasn't so hot. He worked every day. He never takes a day off. The guy it's in his system. Yeah. It's in his system. So when it came back around, it was nothing for him. He never stopped.
Wow. Yeah. You ain't stopping either. But I mean, I remember reading that you A&R Brandy's Full Moon album while you were still like the chairman of a publishing company.
I wish I was chairman back then.
But you were still a high executive.
Yeah.
But you A&R that.
It did take a little long for me to get there, but
that's, in my opinion, Brandy's best album. Would you still A&R an album today?
Yeah, I do, but it's behind the scenes. I don't have to put my name on it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I don't have to put my name on it. It's just, you know,
your fingerprints on it still.
I don't know. It's the artist's fingerprints that's on it. I just do my part. But you know, that was a fun experience. You know, and it's funny because that was an album that I didn't realize for a very long time that it was as successful and culturally impactful as it was, because we put a lot of work into that album, and then we shot the video for the first single. You know, I think the song "What About Us" was written the day before the Twin Towers came down. We were in New York, and I remember Rodney leaving to go to this Michael Jackson show at the Garden. He had these two shows at the Garden, if I'm not mistaken, but it was festive, right?
Yeah.
And And I think that was the day What About Us was written. And the next morning, the Twin Towers came down.
Wow.
But so she shot the video for What About Us, and the record is going. I remember Craig Kalman calling me like, yo, you did it. Thank you for all your work. The record is taking off. And there's this conference call with Brandy. I'm like, okay, so we do the conference call. She gets on the call. She's like, hey, guys, how you doing? And Craig is giving her all the info on the album, this, and this. And she told her she was pregnant. And I was like, whoa. Like, I had never been through that before. You know what I mean? I'd never been through that, never experienced it. And you know, so she shot Full Moon, the album, the video, pregnant, right? And but she didn't get to promote the album
the same way.
She didn't like she would have, right? And so I just kind of moved on from it because I just thought we missed.
Yeah. But then now you see how people have.
Yeah, what happened was a couple of years later, I started bumping into people and they were like, yo, you did Full Moon? I was like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And so I called Rodney Jerkins and I said, Rod, you know, the craziest thing happens to me. I said, people come up to me and they just go crazy about the Full Moon now. He said, you too? And so we started talking and I said, Rod, like, we did a classic and we didn't even know it. Right. We didn't even know it because it was successful.
All the real life stuff.
It was successful, but not nearly as successful as it would have been if she was able to be, go and do her thing. But listen, something better came into her life, so it's all good. Yeah. But it was that moment of like, you know, and people like they say what you say, Dot, like Chauncey Billups to this day tells me Full Moon is like one of his favorite albums. That's my brother. He says Full Moon is one of his favorite albums.
Great.
And I didn't know it. We didn't know it at the time.
Jay told me that you're an audiophile. I don't even know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
These sonics, man. These sounds, man.
Yeah. My system is nuts.
I see you had like, was it Wilson speakers or something? I saw you did something.
Yeah, Wilson. Oh, wow. Yeah. Wilson audio speakers. Like I got the best sound system in the music business. By far.
He was saying like producers be getting all mad. They be hearing it through his speakers. They be like, I gotta go back to the studio and change that.
Yeah. I have the best audio system than anyone in the music business by far. By far. It's not even close. I promise you. And I haven't even seen everyone's office, but I know they haven't put what I put into my system.
You can hear a good or bad mix.
Yeah, and listen, the music is the music. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like I always tell people that, I can't wait to hear it. I said, listen, if it sounds bad, it's just gonna sound bad coming out of these speakers. Like, it doesn't. My system is very neutral. It doesn't add anything, right? It just plays what's there. So if it's a bad mix, it's gonna sound like a bad mix.
Bad mix. One last note. He allowed me to share this. He said, "You didn't necessarily love the Ape Shit remix, for example. I mean, Ape Shit mix, for example." Like you talk about like how important mixing is and how somebody who loves sound like yourself can be a stickler.
I can't believe he told you that. Yeah.
Great record.
I didn't think the mix was great. I didn't think the mix was great at all.
So what makes a great mix in your mind, like outside of it?
I mean, a great mix is one I don't have to comment on. You know what I mean? Like it's just, that's just it. Like it's not about like, oh, this is the mix. Now you do hear certain mixes where you're like, well, that song is mixed really good. Yeah. But it's not about that. My thing is the glass is always half full with me. Yeah. So is when something is half empty or not great, that's what I comment on. So it's not about what's a great mix. To me, the great mix is the one I don't have to comment on. You know,
you just don't want to find something.
That one is just it came right after summer. Like that summer is just mixed like perfect, right? I mean, that's might be the best mix on the album. It's like, and it comes right after that, and I was just like, oh man, this mix sounds so muffled and whatever. You know, listen. People wish they could have a mix like Ape Shit, right?
Absolutely.
But for me,
and like we said, one of those moments too, like we talk about those iconic moments or how records have those magic moments, and like there's a certain point when Beyonce's rapping, she just takes into another zone. Like
anything she does is another zone. That's just how she approaches the game. You know, like it's just like I say, the mix is. I don't love it. He's right. I don't love it. I don't love it.
Do you have favorites that you do love, like favorite songs, like from I guess the artists that you have, or?
Yeah, like. All of the Lights is my favorite Kanye West song.
Great. That's a great mix.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great everything. Yeah. To me, you know, that's the song that solidified Kanye as probably the best producer in the game. That artist side, it's a great song for the artist side. And if you understand everything that's going on in that song, how many people are on that song and how he pulled that together for this special moment. But it was, to me, that's the slam dunk moment of like, I'm the best producer here. The production is incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. What else? Like Lose Yourself is my favorite Eminem record.
That's a great. I commented on Twitter. I said that hook it's so wordy, but it's just so poignant. Like,
yeah.
It's a great record.
Yeah, and wordy hooks usually don't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wordy hooks usually don't work, and it's just too much going on, right? You know, there's a song that Andy Gibb had called Everlasting Love. Like, it's so many words in that hook, but it works. It's one of my favorite songs. So Barry Gibb is one of my favorite songwriters. But I met Barry Gibb before, and I said, "What were you thinking about when you what were you on when you wrote that song?" He said, "Probably something special." But that's one of my favorites. I mean, I like all music. Like Landslide is my favorite Fleetwood Mac song. You know what I mean? Bohemian Rhapsody is probably one of my favorite songs of all time. You know, like I like all types of music. You know what
Somebody
I mean?
was saying, I was the concept was weird, saying like they loved the Travis Scott Sicko Mode was kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody in a sense, like a hip hop version.
No, I don't know about that, but I will tell you this. I was in the studio with Travis, and he was playing me songs, and he played Sicko Mode. I didn't even know that was the name of the song at the time, and I was like, that song is hot. And then I made him play me the song like 3 different times. I was like, that song's the best song you played. Now I didn't know that was Sicko Mode at the time.
Yeah.
And then the album comes out. I was like, that's the song in the studio. So you have those moments. I don't work with Travis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like those are those moments where you
You're
feel
just a
like
giving guy, John.
Yeah,
and when you go to different companies, people go with you, man.
yeah.
Why is that? Why is that?
I don't know, man. Like I said, we talk about that later. You trying to stop some business here.
The future's looking bright, though, as always.
The future's definitely looking bright. But I can say I was in the studio with Swiss once, recently actually, and he's playing his album for me and Jermaine. Yeah, for me and Jermaine.
B-Dot's been raving about it.
It's really good.
It's really good. So he's like the 10th song he plays is this song with Young Thug.
Oh yeah, it's coming out soon.
It's coming out, yeah.
He called me yesterday. I spoke to him yesterday. He said it's coming out Friday. But I'm like, that's the best song on your album. And he was like, oh no, this and y'all, I got this other record. I said, those songs are good, but that's the best song on your album. Like, you got Young Thug sounding amazing.
Yeah. Told you, Elliot.
He said like really
He's
rapping,
really rapping.
rapidy rap.
No. It's and you heard it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And so we're going on and on. Jermaine is talking to him. And I remember at one point saying to Swiss, I said, do you know how much people pay me for this information? Like, I'm giving it to you for free.
Right.
And it's funny because I see Jonte Austin was in the studio as well. And I just seen Jonte at a concert, and he came up to me and said, do you know how much people pay me for this information? And like, it was an epic night. It was an epic night in the studio.
Another epic night's going to be on October 11th before we get out of here. What's going down on October 11th for people that don't know?
I'm receiving the Spirit of Life Award from City of Hope.
Congratulations.
It's like the highest honor in the music business that an executive can achieve. And so they chose me this year, and that's great. It's the award and everything, but really what City of Hope is a cancer research center. And they do a lot of great things, and they work in the cure type 1 diabetes as well, which my son actually has. And so we're raising a lot of money. A lot of my friends have come together to help me to help celebrate the evening, but also help raise some money. Pharrell is hosting the event. Jay is performing. Jay is presenting, and B is performing.
Yes.
Mary is performing as well. I signed them back in the 90s, like 97 maybe, 98. I don't know, whenever it was, but I signed them. Warren Campbell was one of my first songwriters I signed, and that's their producer. And I went over to the house, signed them, and so it's important for me for them to be a part of the show as well, so people see the journey.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
How do you find that balance? Because you're still like very behind the scenes, right? Like how are you dealing with like the attention with stuff like that? You always like try to keep a balance of
not so well, Elliot. Not so well. Not so well.
You regret this before we go.
Yeah, not so well. I mean, it's just I enjoy being behind the scenes. I always they say people always ask me why I don't do more. Because I obviously can, but my view is there's only one star in the room, and that's the star. That's how I roll.
We appreciate that, man.
It,
Thank
John.
you for being part of the role. Come through here, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Respect, man. Big John.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Don't ask him for
To
nothing.
your success.
Absolutely.
Radar Podcast.
We out of here.
All right.
Yeah.